गिरिवरधारी यशोदानन्दन व्रज जनरञ्जन यशोदानन्दन व्रज जनरञ्जन जमुनातीरा वनचारी यमुनातीरा वनचारी जय राधा माधव जय कुंज बिहारी जय राधा माधव जय कुंज बिहारी जय गोपी जन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी जय गोपी जन वल्लभ गिरिवरधारी जय राधा माधव जय कुंज बिहारी हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे जयो राधा गिरिधारी श्री राधे जयो राधे जय राधे जय श्री राधे जय गिरि गोवर्धन जय गिरि गोवर्धन जय जगन्नाथ जय बलदेव जय सुभद्रा जय गौरानिताई जय निताई गौर हरि बोल निताई गौर हरि बोल जय जय प्रभुपाद जय जय प्रभुपाद जय जय गुरुदेव जय जय गुरुदेव निताई गौर प्रेमानंदी हरि हरि बोल जयम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राजकाचार्य श्री श्रेष्ठ भक्तिवेदांत स्वामी श्रीला प्रभुपाद की जय. So, welcome to this morning session of Srimad Bhagavatam. We will begin with reading Srila Prabhupada's Lilamrita. All glories to Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Prabhupada held his evening meetings on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, just as he had uptown. The loft was out of the way for most of his acquaintances, and it was on the Bowery. A cluster of sleeping derelicts regularly blocked the street-level entrance, and visitors would find as many as half a dozen bumps to step over before climbing the 4 flights of stairs. But it was something new. You could go and sit in a group of hip people and watch the Swami lead Kirtan. The room was dimly lit, and Prabhupada would burn incense. Many casual visitors came and went. One of them, Gantar, had vivid impressions. You walked right off the Bowery into a room filled with incense. It was quiet. Everyone was talking in hushed tones, not really talking at all. Swamiji was sitting in the front of the room and in meditation. There was a tremendous feeling of peace which I have never had before. I'd happened to have studied for 2 years to become a minister and was into meditation, study, and prayer. But this was my first time to do anything Eastern or Hindu. There were lots of pillows around and mats on the floor for people to sit on. I don't think there were any pictures or statues. It was just Swamiji, incense and mats, and obviously the respect of the people in the room for him. Before we went up, Carl was laughing and saying how Swami wanted everyone to use the hand symbols just correctly. I had never played the cymbals before, but when it began, I just tried to follow Swamiji, who was doing it in a certain way. Things were building up. The sound was building up, but then someone was doing it wrong. And Swamiji just very, very calmly shook a finger at someone. They looked and then everything stopped. He instructed this person from a distance, and this fellow got the right idea and they started up again. After a few minutes, the sound of the cymbals and the incense we weren't in the Bowery any longer. We started chanting Hare Krishna. That was my first experience in chanting. I'd never had chanted before. There's nothing in Protestant religion that comes even close to that. Maybe Catholics with their Hail Marys, but it's not quite the same thing. It was relaxing and very interesting to be able to chant, and I found Swamiji very fascinating. The loft was more open than Prabhupada's previous place uptown, so there was less privacy. And here, some of the visitors were skeptical and even challenging, but everyone found him confident and joyful. He seemed to have far reaching plans and he had dedication. He knew what he wanted to do and was single handedly carrying it out. It's not one's man job. It's not one man's job, he had said, but he went on doing all he could, depending on Krishna for the results. David was beginning to help, and more people were coming by to visit him. Almost all of Prabhupada's Bowery friends were musicians or friends of musicians. They were into music, drugs, women, and spiritual meditation. Because Prabhupada's presentation of the Hare Krishna mantra was both musical and meditative, they were automatically interested. Prabhupada stressed that all the Vedic mantras or hymns were sung. In fact, the words Bhagavad Gita meant the song of God, but the words of the Vedic hymns were incarnations of God in the form of transcendental sound. The musical accompaniment of hand cymbals, drum, harmonium was just that, an accompaniment, and had no spiritual purpose, independent of the chanting of the name of God. Prabhupada allowed any instrument to be used as long as it did not detract from the chanting. Carol, it was very interracial, music oriented scene. There were a few professional musicians and a lot of people who enjoyed playing or just listening. Some people were painting in some of the lofts. And that's basically what was going on. We had memorable kirtans. One time there was a beautiful ceremony. Some of us went over early to prepare for it. There must have been 100 people who came that day. You, Prabhu, is this okay to stop here? You want me to stop here?
Yes, Mataji, that's fine. Thank you.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So our verse for today is from Canto 4, chapter 24, verse number 61. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudirayet Shrinvatam Swakatha Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtanam Hridyantasto hi abhadrani Vidunoti Sruhit Satam Nashtaprayeshva Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naishtiki. So our verse is verse number 61 from the chapter chanting the song sung by Lord Shiva. Yo maya yedam pururupa yasrajat bibharti bhuya shapayati avikriyah yadbheda buddhi sad ivatma dusthaya Tvam atmatantram bhagavan pratimahi Yo maya yedam pururupa yashrajat Bibharti bhuyah shapayati avikriyah Yadbheda buddhihi sad ivatma dusthaya Tvam atmatantram bhagavan pratimahi Yo maya yedam pururupa yasrajat Bibharti bhuya shapayati avikriyah Yadbheda buddhi sad ivatmadustaya Tvam atmatantram bhagavan pratimahi. Are there any volunteers who would want to recite this verse?
Hare Krishna Mataji, I am trying. Yo maya edam pururupaya srijat vibharti bhukshapayati abhikriyaha yad veda buddhi shad ivatma dustaya tam atmatantram bhagavan pratimahi.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Maya yedam pururupaya srijat vibhorti bhuyaha shapayatya vikriyah yadveda buddhi shadivatma dusthaya tvam atmatantram bhagavan pratimohi. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you. Beautiful.
Hare Krishna Mataji, I am also trying.
Yes, Mataji.
Jo maya idam pururupoy asrijat vibharti bhuya sapayati abhikriyah yadveda buddhi sad ibhatma dusthaya tam atma tantram bhagavan pratimahi. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you. Very beautiful. Thank you, Mataji. Okay, anyone else?
May I try, please?
Yes, Mataji, please.
Yo maedam pururupayasrijat Vibharti bhuya chapayati abhikriya Yat veda buddhi sat ivatma dushtaya Tvam atmatantaram bhagavan pratimahi. Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna Mataji, please. Thank you.
Pranam. Yo maya yedam pururupaya srujat vibharti bhuya kshapayati avikriyah yadveda buddhi sada ivatma dustayam Tvamatmatantram Bhagavan Pratimahi. Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you, Mataji. So beautifully sung by everyone. So we can read the synonyms. Yaha. One who, Maya, by his energy, Idam, this, Puru, manifold, Rupaya, manifestation, Asrajat, Ashrijat, created, Vibharti, maintains, Bhuya, again, Shapayati, annihilates, Avikriyaha, without being altered, Yat, that, Veda Buddhihi, sense of differentiation, Sat, eternal, Eva, like, Atma Dusthaya, giving trouble to oneself, Tvam, unto you, Atma Tantram, fully self-independent, Bhagavan, O Lord, Supreme Personality of Godhead, Pratimahi, I can understand. Synonyms, translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. My dear Lord, you have manifold energies, and these energies are manifested in manifold forms. With such energies, you have also created this cosmic manifestation. And although you maintain it as if it were permanent, you ultimately annihilate it. Although you are never disturbed by any such changes and alterations, the living entities are disturbed by them, and therefore they find the cosmic manifestation to be different or separated from you. My Lord, you are always independent, and I can clearly see this fact. Purport. Is there anyone who's interested to read the purport?
Sure, Mataji.
Yes, Prabhu.
It is clearly explained that the Lord Krishna has multi-energies, which can be grouped into three, namely the external energy, the internal energy, and the marginal energy. There are also different cosmic manifestations, namely the spiritual world and the material world, as well as different types of living entities. Some living entities are conditioned and others are eternally free. The eternally free living entities are called Nitya Mukta, for they never come in contact with the material energy. However, some living entities are conditioned, in the material world, and thus they think, and some living entities are conditioned in this material world, and thus they think themselves separated from the Supreme Lord. Due to their contact with the material energy, their existence is always troublesome. Being always in distress, the conditioned soul considers the material energy to be very much disturbing. This fact is explained by Vaishnava Kavi or poet. Krishna Boli Se Jeva Anadi Bahirmuka Atyeva Maya Thare Deya Samsara Dukkha. When the living entity forgets the Supreme Lord and wants to enjoy himself independently, imitating the Supreme Lord, he is captured by the false notion that he is the enjoyer and is separated from Supreme Lord. This material energy is therefore very much troublesome to the spiritual energy. The living entity, but the material energy is never troublesome to the Supreme Lord. Indeed, for the Supreme Lord, both material and spiritual energy are the same. In this verse, Lord Shiva explains that the material energy is never troublesome to the Supreme Lord. The Supreme Lord is always independent, but because the living entities are not independent, due to their false idea of becoming independently happy, the material energy is troublesome. Consequently, the material energy creates differentiation. Because the Mayavadi philosophers cannot understand this, they want to be relieved from the material energy. However, Because a Vaishnava philosopher is in full knowledge of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he finds no disturbance even in the material energy. This is because he knows how to utilize the material energy for the service of the Lord. In the government, the criminal department and the civil department may appear different in the eyes of the citizens, but in the eyes of the government, both departments are one and the same. The criminal department is troublesome for the criminals, but not for the obedient citizen. Similarly, the material energy is troublesome for the conditioned soul, but it has nothing to do with the liberated souls who are engaged in the service of the Lord. Through the Purusha Avatara, Mahavishnu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, created the whole cosmic manifestation. Simply by breathing out all the universes, the Lord creates and maintains the cosmic manifestation as Lord Vishnu. Then is Sankarshana, he annihilates the cosmic manifestation. Yet, despite the creation, maintenance, destruction of the cosmos, the Lord is not affected. The various activities of the Lord must be very disturbing to the tiny living entities, but since the Lord is supremely great, he is never affected. Lord Shiva or other pure devotee can see this clearly without being blinded by Veda Buddhi or differentiation. For a devotee, the Lord is the Supreme Spirit Soul. Since he is supremely powerful, his various powers are also spiritual. For a devotee, there is nothing material. For material existence only means forgetfulness of the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you. You read it so beautifully. Thank you so much. So, such a beautiful purport by Srila Prabhupada and beautiful explanation of our conditioned state. Before we delve into this, let's seek some prayers. Let's seek some blessings from our gurus so that we can understand this better. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Patakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savdutam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijanas. What has happened? Parijanas. My mind is
Sahitam, Mataji. Parijana Sahitam.
yeah, my
Sahitam.
mind just went blank. I'll repeat that. Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bir Krishna Das Goswami Niti Namine Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Srila Gurudev ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So thank you for cooperating with me in my blank moment. I'm so sorry for that. This tells that we are really conditioned. And so this verse talks about, I'll repeat the translation again and then I'll stop screen sharing. My dear Lord, you have manifold energies, and these energies are manifested in manifold forms. With such energies, you've also created this cosmic manifestation. And although you maintain it as if it were permanent, you ultimately annihilate it. Although you're never disturbed by such changes and alterations, the living entities are disturbed by them, and therefore they find the cosmic manifestation to be different and separated from you. My Lord, you're always independent, and I can clearly see this fact. So this section is taken from the song which is sung by Lord Shiva, and this is part of the Rudra Gita. So just a quick review of what is happening till now. That's for myself. The chapter begins with the genealogical line of Prithu. Then the Prachetas meet Lord Shiva. And we are in the section of Rudra Gita, wherein the Lord first pays, Lord Shiva pays obeisances to the Lord in the form of Chaturvyuha and the presiding deities of the elements for self-purification. Then Lord Shiva explains that seeing and serving the Lord's glorious form is the highest form. And then glory of bhakti and bhakti and the association of pure devotees is Lord's real mercy. This is what we've been reading in the past. This section is about the relationship between Lord and the material creation. So as we see this, there's this particular, in the verses 51 and 52, there's this particular form of the Lord that Lord's dear devotees worship. And the Lord's devotee worship, and the Lord is the collection of all beauties. The Lord has ever-increasing beauty. And the beauty of the Lord is described in his bodily form, the Lord's shoulders, chest, Lord's navel, belly, Lord's lower body. And then Lord Shiva has described the bodily features of the Lord authoritatively. Now he wants to see the lotus feet of the Lord. And the lotus feet are as beautiful as the two lotus petals. Why? Because they dissipate the darkness in the hearts by the effulgence of their toenails. Lord Shiva here addresses the Lord as Guru. Why? Because Krishna is the teacher of bhakti for all of us. So in this section, when we read about the relationship between the Lord and the material creation, yesterday we read about Brahman, the impersonal Brahman, and that spreads everywhere like the sunshine or the sky. And that impersonal Brahman, which spreads throughout the universe, in which the entire universe is manifested, is you. So the all-pervading impersonal Brahman is the Lord in one of his forms. So he creates, he maintains, and he destroys this universe repeatedly. And that happens by the Lord's Maya, which is also Lord's energy, and which, of course, it is God's, it is the Lord's energy. Therefore, it does not bewilder the Lord, which we have read in this verse. It does not bewilder the Lord. So, but living entities who are bewildered by Maya think that this universe is separated from Krishna. How? By differentiation, Veda Buddhi. So here the Lord Shiva is praying to realize that by the essence of bhakti, give us that realization. And who can give this realization? Who is independent himself. So this verse is a journey. This verse is a beautiful journey of our conditioned state to our liberated state. So from the, how do we attain that conditioned state? From the Jiva soul gets, because he's in the clutches of Maya, the modes of material nature, he becomes conditioned. And in the last sentence, for a devotee, there's nothing material. For material existence only means forgetfulness of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So here, very beautifully, Srila Prabhupada has clearly mentioned that a conditioned soul qualities is topmost forgetful of Krishna. And because he's forgetful of Krishna, he has to remember something and he has to realize something being in this material world. So he's very much the servant of his own senses, and he wants his desires to be fulfilled. Therefore, he's the servant of his material desires as well. So there's a clear differentiation between the conditioned and the liberated soul. So the conditioned and the very clear differentiation here is the liberated soul is always in remembrance of Krishna. And from that 9 ladders of bhakti, or the processes of bhakti, or the ways of bhakti, we see Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam. So these are the places, or these are the ways where one can become liberated. So Srila Prabhupada here says again, the last sentence here, for a devotee, the Lord is a supreme spirit soul. Since he's supremely powerful, his various powers are also spiritual. For a devotee, there's nothing material. For material existence only means forgetfulness of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So how does this liberation, or how can we attain liberation? That's the question for all of us. Because we are in the conditioned state, we can't get liberation just like that. Why? Because condition being, we are surrounded from all sides by the materialistic ways of life, and it very subtle, in a very subtle form, even if outwardly we very well know that that's not right, or that's something that this activity or anything will lead us further to forgetfulness of Krishna. Still, there's this subtle influences that happens in our consciousness, and then our mentality or our consciousness becomes deeply ingrained. We get imprints of the material association, and it gets ingrained in our heart. They get imprinted in our heart. And this conditioning is subtle. this is not only subtle, but it's very deep as well. It's not something which I may think that, okay, I can overcome my conditioning by just remembering Krishna. Yes, only by remembering Krishna continuously, I can improve on my conditioned state to a little bit of liberated state. Because this conditioning is so subtle and so very deep, it requires conscious efforts to gradually remove our patterns of behavior and change our mood. And that mood is given in Shiksha Ashtakam. And what is that mood? Can anybody contribute to this? What is that mood? From conditioning to, what is that mood? How do we learn that mood to come from the conditioning state to the remembrance state? I'm not even saying of liberated state, of remembrance state of only remember. Sorry, Prabhu.
Pranadapi sunicana, tarorapi sahisnuna, amanina, manadina kirtananya sadakari.
Yes, so that's how Trinadapi Sunichena Taror Eva Sahishnuna Amanina Manadena Kirtanya Sadahari. So Kirtanya Sadahari, this is an indicator here. How can we always remember Krishna? By being humble. But what is humility? Is it just like wearing a garb of a devotee and pretending that I'm humble? Or is it keeping so many things at heart and outwardly tolerating things? Or feeling that, oh, my false ego isn't satisfied, no one is really bothered to look at me or talk to me or give me respect. And if people are not giving me respect, how can I give respect to people? Now you see, there is a very clear switch of habits within us. And what is that switch of habits? I am very much I-centered, me-centered. Humility, outward. So it's not happening. There's no change happening in my behavior pattern. So the mood within my heart will not change because I'm only practicing my Krishna consciousness from the outward aspect. And then all these things of humility, tolerance, respect, giving respect to others and not wanting respect from others. But what's happening? We're just opposite of this. So in that case, these moods of not forgetting Krishna is not established because instead of Krishna conscious, I'm very much I conscious. I need respect. Therefore, I can only give respect when I get respect. So there's a lot of I factor. Because of this, I can't do Krishna. I can't do Kirtanya Sadahari. I can't remember Krishna all the time. So, of course, our mind has limited capacity, and therefore, it mentions that we are conditioned. So, these patterns of behavior need to gradually remove from our hearts, and then we need to establish a human mood. And what is human mood, which Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has clearly stated in the third verse? Trinadapi Shunichena Taroreva Sahishnuna. Only then can we have compassion. So that human mood within our heart, thinking ourselves to be unimportant and unworthy. So that's why in spiritual path, our first learning to everyone is, who am I? Who am I? When we say, who am I connect myself with a lot of things and I still say I am a spirit soul. But we forget the fact that my constitutional position is that I am the servant of Krishna. And because I am the servant of Krishna, I am acting like the master. How is this going to match? So therefore, this will create a lot of misery within me. So therefore, it is that we are thinking, we need to think ourselves to be unimportant and unworthy. So that's how humility comes. Humility comes when I feel that I haven't done enough for Krishna till now. And the desire keeps growing inside. That's where it's not something like a motivational talk of feeling depressed about, oh, I'm unworthy, I'm useless, so I'm a failure or anything like that. In the material world, it may be considered really, really good. But in the spiritual world, this creates a lot of compassion within us for ourselves. Because I feel that however hard I'm trying, I know my limited capacities. And because of that, I'm not able to give full services to Krishna. My heart is not fully there. In that case, whatever talents and gifts we have, we keep improving on that. We keep growing in that. And whatever assets, whatever talents we have, we may use it as a gift of Krishna in the service of Krishna. And then we offer them as our service because we are the servants of Krishna. Now, when we serve, there is this desire that the false ego pops up and it says, oh, I did this service and no one is really appreciating me. This desire, where we want to accept the credits and we want to glorify ourselves, makes us conditioned because we need to just reflect upon our own consciousness and check, what am I doing? What is this intention of glory? What is the intention of my service? Is it self-glorification or is it the service of Krishna? So when we become humble in this state, knowing our conditioned state that, oh Krishna, look at me. How am I serving you with that intention of getting glorification? We very well know our conditioned situation. So then when we realize, when we internalize, spirituality is internalizing. When we internalize, Krishna gives us this recommendation. He gives us in all Srimad Bhagavatam, Srimad Bhagavad Gita, in Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita itself, we are learning what Vaishnava etiquette is. And from Vaishnava etiquettes, we are desiring to cultivate within us the quality of humility, and gradually these external rules become internalized. And as these become internalized, our consciousness changes. So that is our journey from consciousness to liberated stage. And then we can remember Krishna all the time. So a task comes, how do we not do it? How do we practice it basically? To remain liberated, we have to be always attached to Krishna. Now, I'm using the word have to. Bhakti can't be done with a have to attitude. Because if there is a force on us, we are doing it for the sake of it. And if I'm saying have to, that is not bhakti. Bhakti is I wish to and I want to. So therefore, when I wish and when I want to serve Krishna, that bhakti becomes, because the Lord wants our voluntary response, that bhakti becomes topmost. And that becomes topmost because Krishna is the reservoir of bhakti. Radharani is the reservoir of bhakti. And if we want to be in the association of Krishna, we can't forget the devotees of Krishna. We can't devotees of the Lord. So Therefore, when we go back to verse number 58, we see a lot of qualities of a devotee here and pure devotional service. So a devotee's association is the real mercy. That is that place where we can start changing ourselves from the conditioned state to an awareness state. And the moment we are aware fully of our own constitutional position, we become liberated. Now, we are in the middle of, and we are learning, and it's our choice to remain conditioned or being aware. Awareness is always good. Conditioned always brings misery. So, devotees' association is a real mercy. Now, who are the devotees of the Lord then? We are quite confused about devotees' association, and often we may get spiritual traumas because of devotee association. That we have to draw a line there. What is devotee association? We can go back to Srimad Bhagavatam and find out. We can go back to Bhagavad Gita and find out. We can again go back as an example of the Lord himself in Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita and find out who is a devotee. The devotee has the qualities of the Lord. The Lord does not entertain himself in politics or anything which is not related to purifying our consciousness. So devotee of the Lord in verse number 58 is, the devotee of the Lord are completely purified by worshipping your lotus feet. They are merciful. They are compassionate, and they have proper conduct and pure hearts. And how can we carry a pure heart? That's a big question for all of us. Can we just reflect or just introspect a little bit into our hearts and say, ask our heart, ask our consciousness, or ask ourselves, the me, am I carrying a pure heart? Am I compassionate? Am I purified in the association of Krishna? Therefore, what happens when the sannyasis come? We get really attracted to them because they are carrying pure hearts, because they are carrying compassion. Even if we are making huge mistakes in our lives, they carry so much compassion that they keep forgiving us. They are the epitome of humility. Why? Because they don't think about themselves. Humility is not thinking about ourselves. Humility is thinking less about ourselves and more about Krishna. When that happens, automatically the proper conduct and pure hearts evolve. And that is how we attain the real mercy. Also, in verse number 59, we see that the devotee is not agitated and is always absorbed in Krishna. We can also reflect this within ourselves. The agitated and unabsorbed mind our unabsorption in Krishna puts us in misery. Because we are forgetful of Krishna, we are very much in remembrance of material energy because it's I factor. This makes us conditioned. So what is the passport to become humble or to become liberated? What is that one point? Number one, try and become a devotee. How to become a devotee? We are practicing devotees. We are not devotees yet. How to become a devotee? By associating with the pure devotees who have pure heart, who are compassionate, who have proper conducts, and who are completely purified. Now, because we're living in this material world, we say that nobody is completely purified. This is the humility of the pure devotees. The pure devotees are untouched by anything. So therefore, they carry the qualities of Krishna. Therefore, for a pure devotee in this verse, for a pure devotee, there is nothing material. So therefore, he acquires the quality that Krishna has. In Krishna, in verse 4.9, I think. Let me just check. It says, Janma karma cha me divyam. Yes. So, Janma karma cha me divyam. One who knows the transcendent nature of my appearance and activities does not, upon leaving the body, take his birth again in this material world, but attains my eternal spiritual abode. This is where we understand that to attain the transcendental nature of the Lord, which we think Krishna here is giving, that one who knows. Knows here means one who understands, one who is aware. It's not just like, oh yeah, Krishna is transcendental by nature and I am conditioned. So yes, Krishna is Krishna and I am me. And I'm very conditioned, so I can live here and I'm in misery, etc., etc. Whatever is happening, we can't really get stuck in our situations. The journey from conditioned to awareness to liberated has to be taken if we want to go back upon leaving this body, if we don't want to take birth again in this material world, but go back to Krishna's abode. And what is going back to Krishna's abode? Going back to Krishna's abode means being here, but being completely purified of the conditioned nature that the material energy is throwing on us. Therefore, again, I'm saying the last line, for a devotee, there is nothing material. For material existence only means forgetfulness of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Again, this, as long as we remain agitated in the conditioned state or in material conditioning, we will be conditioned. And because we'll be conditioned, the result is being fearful. Fear creates anxiety, and therefore, there is a lot of miseries for the conditioned soul. Similarly, this material energy is troublesome for the conditioned soul, but there's nothing to do with the liberated soul. For the liberated soul, wherever he is, be it in hell or heaven or whatever place Krishna has decided for him, he is in remembrance with Krishna. Now, to conclude here, I can just quickly remember, or when we sit in a kirtan and we are in full remembrance of Krishna, what happens to us? We become really peaceful. I'm not talking about the other levels, but I'm just talking about a very basic level. We become really peaceful at heart. And therefore, all the fears, all the anxieties, all the miseries are like broomed and dusted. We don't see that anywhere. So when we are in that state, this state does not remain with us for really long, because we are very conditioned and our material environment puts us into that situation where we can't remain really focused. So once we become the devotee, we're not fearful of the material minds, but respects the mode of material nature with compassion, with self-compassion. And there is a difference between compassion for others and compassion for the self. Until we develop compassion for the self, we can't develop compassion for others. What is self-compassion? Accepting the way we are and wanting and looking for mercy with the desire that I am a person full of flaws, knowing our intentions. So a devotee's heart, which is purified by bhakti, is never agitated by objects of the external energy. They don't fall asleep during worship. Therefore, we see the transcendental energy. Just recently, I had this really nice interaction with the Harinam Ruchi group and His Holiness Mahavishnu Swami Maharaj. It was really, we had this Ratha Yatra on Saturday, and after walking a few kilometers, my legs and my mind and everything was like in a switch off mode. And I was amazed at their transcendental nature and their energy. How do they get that energy? Because they're constantly remembering Krishna. Nothing affects them. Whatever, they don't have fear and anxiety, and they don't fall asleep while they're worshipping, while they're chanting, or while they're taking the names of the Lord in full enthusiasm. When we become like that, we have fallen in the dark place. And because Bhakti Devi blesses everyone, it is for us to actually take that mercy and be blessed. And therefore, when we take that mercy through Bhakti Devi, we understand the Lord's nature, Lord's fame, and Lord's glories. This is a very beautiful verse, and Srila Prabhupada has repeatedly mentioned here our conditioned state is because of the false idea of becoming the master, false idea of becoming independently happy, false idea of gaining respect from others and not giving respect, false idea of humility, and the very false idea of tolerance. So bhakti again is internalized, and the internalized factors brings that change in our hearts. So Krishna here, Lord Shiva here says that the whole material creation is one part of the energy of the Lord, which is these energies are manifested in multiple forms. And with these energies, the Lord has created, the Lord has maintained, and the Lord has annihilated as well. And liberated souls are not affected. Why? Because they're transcendental in nature, according as the transcendental is in nature with accordance with the Lord. Because we are part and parcels of Krishna, and therefore we do acquire a lot of transcendental qualities from Krishna. So therefore, the material energy creates this differentiation of being conditioned and being liberated. And the process of bhakti is to be aware and take the path from conditioned to liberated. With this, I'll take a halt here. And if there's any comments or anything or any corrections, please feel free to add or comment anything. Thank you. All glories to His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Hare Krishna Mataji, nice class. The journey of material to spiritual. You nicely discuss about that consciousness of I and the Supreme. Just I have one question about that. That means when we are doing bhakti, we don't have to do have to, isn't it? But when you are doing sadhana bhakti, we have to do have to, isn't it? So how it is a practice, because when you are sending the child in the school, they don't want to go, but have to, isn't it? So we have to take have to in our life, isn't it?
Now, have to is a preliminary stage, Mataji.
Yes. Yes.
So have to means it's disciplining ourselves. So discipline is another form of compassion. If we don't discipline anyone in the school, for example, you can well imagine what is going to be the condition of the school. Everyone will do whatever they want to do.
Mm-hmm.
So there are certain rules. Therefore, as I said in previous verses as well, Krishna from from multiple shastras, we can learn Vaishnava etiquette. And when we learn, we take it as our path, a guide, a Bible, or a guide to navigate that path. But we can't stay in have to situation forever.
Yeah, true.
Have to is cultivating that discipline in us, cultivating that remembrance. But if I ask you to remember someone, you have to remember. Will you be able to remember? You won't be able to remember. This remembrance has to come from the fondness in the heart. And if there is no fondness for Krishna in the heart, how these fondness is developed? But through Krishna Katha. So Krishna Katha is really, really relishing as compared to the philosophical aspects of bhakti, right?
Mm. Thank you. We have to take it, in certain point, isn't it? Otherwise, we cannot go ahead.
Yes, that's preliminary stage.
Preliminary
but
stage.
Remain in the first stage forever.
Yeah, means condition to liberated soul.
Yeah,
Okay.
we are following have to stage because we have to put certain regulations so that from that conditioning we at least become human. We at least have a human heart to, like, it says that in the mode of ignorance and passion we can't really practice bhakti. So to practice bhakti we have to come to the mode of goodness.
Yes, yeah.
If I want to sleep for so long and then if I want to chant while sleeping, it's good. But chanting the prescribed rounds while I am sleeping is not a good thing. I have to discipline myself that I have to give this much time or this much focus, even if I don't want, so that gradually, now we can see this from our own practices, that what things are have to for us and what things I am fond of doing. So you can easily draw the line in between the two.
True. Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Mataji, Hare Krishna, thank you for the question. Okay, so it is, I think, 8:33 and everyone must be busy. So if there's no comments or anything, we can stop here, if that's okay with you.
Yes, Mataji.
Okay, so vanchakalpatarubhyascha
Sarvascha kripa sindhu bhaya च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः. अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय. हर ग्रेस राधा पद्मा माता जी की जय. श्रीला प्रभुपाद की जय. गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल. All grace to assemble devotees. Hare Krishna.
Answer Bipu.
Accept my respectful obeisances as well. Have a nice day. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.